Textures inside of Hammer are basically image files combined with a set of instructions on how to display them within Hammer and your world or your game. To open up the texture dialog box, we can click the Texture Application Mode button in the Tools panel or press Shift-A on the keyboard. This brings up the Face Edit Sheet. We're going to focus on the Materials tab, which is the first tab within the Face Edit Sheet dialog. In the Materials tab on the Face Edit Sheet, we have a range of options for how to apply and display textures to our individual brushes inside of Hammer. Let's start by selecting the floor in one of our rooms. Z and zoom out slightly, get a view of the floor. Let's start with the big image at the bottom left corner. This is the current texture we have applied to our floor. We can click the Browse button, and we'll bring up a browser to actually search through the enormous amount of textures we have available for us in Hammer. By default, we're looking at a bunch of brick textures that we can scroll down our list for a range and range and range of other textures at our disposal. We could search for a long time for what we want, but let's try to narrow the field a little bit. In our Filter tab, let's type in floor. And any texture with the keyword floor pops up within the browser. Now, we can browse through the list looking for textures that are appropriate to the floor. Sometimes you'll want to use ceiling or wall or other textures on your floor. Don't need to narrow yourself down. But this is a nice, easy way to quickly find more or less the things you're looking for. Alright, let's go down. Let's go down and pick a floor like this uneven stone floor or this wooden floor. Click the stone, double click, and it pops it into the window in our Face Edit sheet. Now with our floor selected, click the Apply button, and you'll see it instantly applies that texture to our floor. Shift-Z, zoom in, and now we'll look at the other options we have to continue to manipulate our texture. We have Scale on the X and Y. You can click the arrows or type a value, or quickly use the Scroll button on your mouse to cycle through different scale settings. Just make a nice small 0.15. Shrink down that slightly. If that's too little, come back in. 0.5. 0.5. Apply. And we have a nice big texture of each individual stone. Zoom down to get more of a street level view. Decide what we like. Looks a little big and silly, so I'm going to go right back more or less where we were at 0.15, 0.15, apply. Yeah, that's looking better. Now we also have the option to shift that texture. Come back up, look at some of our edges, and see we're kind of cutting our brick in half. So we have the option to scroll over and put our brick right on the edge there, or shift it along the x-axis to bury our brick halfway in the wall. The light map scale is by default 16. Lower values are going to give us more precise lighting with more gradient in the bands of light. It also is going to be more expensive or take more system resources for the engine to render. Larger values will be less precise and faster for the engine to render. So it's good to take into account on more detailed portions of your level that you want smaller values in light map scale, and areas that may not be as important and use larger values. We can also justify automatically the positioning of our texture. I'm going to align it to the left, to the right, the top, the bottom, or center within the selected brush or face. We can also fit one instance of our tiled texture to our entire face. which in this case blows up our texture too big. So let's return to where we were at 0.15, 0.15, apply, we can adjust our shift, and continue looking at some of the other options we have. We can also select multiple faces at once by using the Control key as we click each of our faces. Alternately, if you press the Shift key, you'll select an entire object in one click. And if we use Control plus Shift, we can select all the different faces of different objects and add to our selection. So let's apply a different texture to our archway. Click Browse. Let's type stone. And we're presented with a new list of stone textures. Scroll down our list. Let's try one of these. Double click, hit apply. Let's try justifying. Justify left and top. Enabling the treat as one option will treat all objects selected as one continuous texture and apply that texture throughout the selection. It's especially useful if you're fitting a texture across multiple faces. Click the Mode button, and we get a list of different selection options. Lift and Select is default. When you click on a face, you'll select that face inside your level, and you'll also select its given texture, ready to be applied to another object. If we change our mode to simply Lift, we will lift the texture of the face we click on without actually selecting the face itself. Apply will simply apply the texture we have in our browser window to any face which we click on. Alternately, in the default Lift and Select mode, we can also apply the currently selected texture by right-clicking the mouse on the face we want to apply it to. So this texture may be a little big. Let's change back to Lift Select. And let's Shift Control click different faces, the different faces of our walls. Now with treat as one, we could fit and stretch the texture across all of them, which isn't the desired effect. Or we can go back to our default 0.25, 0.25 with the 0, 0 shift to our standard. I think that still may be a little big. Let's go back 0.15, 0.15 as we did our floor. Apply. It's a bit better at ground level. It looks like we missed this face here since we Control-Shift-clicked its adjacent face and deselected it. So let's go ahead and select one of the faces whose parameters we are happy with. Change our mode to Apply Texture Plus Values, which will apply texture with the accompanying scale and shift values. And click on the face we want to change. Perfect. Now it falls in line with the rest. Align to View treats the camera as a projector, projecting an image straight out from its lens on a surface into the distance. It can be very useful for cliffs where you want a uniform texture that doesn't necessarily follow each face but looks a certain way at a distance. Change back to Lift and Select and click the Smoothing Groups. Smoothing groups allow you to match a set of faces that are to be applied as a smooth lit group inside Hammer. They allow you more detail and a better shift between textures when you have lights and other sources to detail your areas. Let's add some additional textures throughout our level. We'll texture the rest of our walls in this stone. In the end, we'll texture our turrets, our pillar, and our ceiling. Shift A to bring up the face edit sheet, material. Lift and select to select the texture we have on the walls. Let's go around and control click the faces we know we want to apply this texture to. Z to move to free camera, Z to lock us out, control to select or unselect our face. Okay. Now with those selected, let's bring up the face edit sheet. Change our mode to simply lift. Sample a texture that we want. And we can right click each face individually to add, or click the browse button, double click that that's the texture we want. You know that we want it at 1.15 by 0.15, and we'll apply that texture to all the selected faces. Excellent. Now let's say we wanted to rotate our floor texture. Lift and select our floor. We want to rotate. Get a little angular so it's not so straight on into our steps to hallway. Just give it a nice 45-degree rotation. Apply. And it's a little more interesting in our room. Doesn't look like we're just zipping down a runway of bricks. Click to select our texture. Switch to the Apply Texture and Values. And left click the floor in our other room to match. Alright. Getting kind of dark, but it's kind of a good feel. So let's lift select our ceiling. Hit Browse and look for ceiling. We got some ceiling textures. Just try to find something that you like or that you think fits. Just do a standard concrete ceiling, which might not fit our stone. But really you can choose anything you'd like. Dirty concrete. Hit Apply. And you can make any adjustments to the scale, rotation, or shift that you'd like. Line it to the left, the top, and I'm going to continue to rotate around 45 degrees. A little bit different as you're running through. Now our stairs, I think we should treat a little different, make them look more center ground. We also could texture one room differently than another to really let people know where you're at in case someone gets disoriented in gameplay. Select our top of each step. Browse. Let's look for tile. There we go. Interesting tiles. Something a little more chateau. Let's try the chateau. Double click, apply. Kind of mosaic-y. It's kind of cool coming down the steps, but you could adjust the scale to be either bigger or smaller. Something a little bit bigger. And you start losing that pattern, so try our trusty 0.15. Maybe adjust your offset. Use the mouse wheel to go a little quicker. And ultimately decide you liked it right back where it was. 0.25. Apply. And maybe just adjust the scale a little bit to get each of those flowers right around the front of the steps. Move this out of our way. Take a look on top of our steps. And maybe try to line those circles up more with this pillar. Right down in the middle there. Something like that. Alright, close the face edit sheet. If you select the object without the face edit sheet open, you'll notice you're selecting the entire brush. Open up the face edit sheet. You have the option to select each face. So we could click on our mosaic chateau here, use our mode apply texture and values, right click down the steps to see what that's like. Doesn't look like they're lining up too well. Change back to our lift and select. Try some adjustments. Kind of cool, just give it that pattern on the way down. Or you could try something completely different. Maybe one of these other tiles, something simple. Scale it down. Anything you'd like. I think I'm going to stick with the mosaic. So I'm going to lift and select my mosaic. I'm going to change my apply with values. Click down the steps. And our Y shift is changing our orientation. So let's rotate this guy 90 degrees. Hopefully now we can actually get that top portion like we like it. Probably has something to do with having both our faces selected at once. But it's more or less what we wanted. So let's go to the other side. Try one at a time. Click the one we want. Right click to apply. Click the one, line to the top. More shift down. Yeah. So we were having an issue there with having multiple faces selected. You can play with it all you'd like. I'm going to try to get that top ridge right on the top red ridge at the top of the step there. Top. You could remember the values you're at too. Just scroll your mouse down and boom. Go up slightly. Eureka. Alright, so we got our steps tiled. Got our floor bricked, our walls rocked. Oh, we can grab our ceiling stone from this guy here, walk into our other room, face edit sheet, right click to apply, change our rotation to 45, 45, apply, match any other characteristics we want. Looks like we're good, we're matching up. So now we're just left with our pillar and our turrets. So let's try something new. Shift click one of these. Whoop. Shift A to bring up the face edit sheet. Shift A to select the top of our turret. Hit browse. Try something like metal. Just do a nice rusty metal turret drum. Apply. Try fitting. Control Shift click. Browse back to our rusted metal. Hit apply. Fit. Yeah. Close this guy for a second. It's kind of cool. Get down here. We got these rusted metal drums that we should be able to shoot through. Let's go ahead. The face edit sheet closed. Control click the rest of our turrets. Oops, I might have shift-clicked it there. Use Control-click to grab the rest. You could go ahead and grab our pillar too if you'd like. Shift-A opens up our face edit sheet. Browse, back to a rusted metal. Apply, fit, and there we go. Alright, so now we've talked about textures. We've talked about brushes and world geometry. Let's talk about something that's going to be really useful for adding functionality and basically everything else we need within our map. Entities. Entities will also allow us to add lights to our scene, which will really help our textures. Right now, they may look a little flat. By adding some dynamic lighting, we'll really be able to pop out our scene and make it look a lot more atmospheric.